So I'd like to turn it over to my partner in crime, I think, Tom.
Thank you, Jean, and good morning, everybody. It's great to see everybody for the first meeting of the Learning Community Family Success Institute Learning Community of 2023. And Jean, I was reflecting this morning because we helped coin the term family success 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it sort of still feels like it's like a new idea. I guess it's a relatively new idea in the history of things, but 20 years, amazing that this has been going on for all this time. We're going to have to, we have a pretty ambitious agenda and we're going to switch it around a little bit. So we're going to start with the report on the community action forums, and then go to some voices from the community, and then Tim is going to give us legislative update, and it's just terrific that Assemblyman Atkins is going to join us.
And Tom, he's here. So take a minute and finish your thoughts, and then let's introduce him.
So, oh, that's terrific. So, well, the thing is, and I've been out of commission a little bit with some health issues, but I'm, on the mend. And one of the things I'm going to suggest that we've somehow find time to step back a little bit and take a deep breath, because there are these symptoms of family distress that are roiling all over the place. And they're really, really intense, and they're really, really scary. And, we all, particularly you all, are, sort of doing heroic work in terms of trying to respond to all these symptoms of distress. But I will tell you, if we don't step back and really get a really clear and human handle on what is causing all this distress, and today we're going to focus on youth distress, we are headed in a really bad direction. And Assemblyman Atkins, welcome to our forum, and you are our hero, you are our champion. And I would like to ask you to talk about why you think this is so important.
Wow, it's so important on so many levels, because each one of us are touched not only on a daily basis, but we're touched in so many ways. Our family is what's important, the next generation, for us to have generational, being able to touch the next generation, being able for us to have the capacity to do such. And the only way that we do that is really to embrace where we are, embrace those folks that are around us, and really get down to the whys. I'm in an industry where I have a Six Sigma black belt. And one of the things that we do is we focus in on process improvement. And one of the ways we do that is we kind of like ask the 5 whys, and we go that level or to that depth to find out what the whys are, and then look at how we solve each one of those whys. But I think, you hit the nail right on the head. You need to understand why this is going on, and how do we navigate? How do we navigate our life and the life of the people that are around us? And the only way that we do that is to ensure that we have the right people in place, the right processes in place, and the right tools in the place. And that's why we're fighting so hard to make sure that we have those 3 things in place: the right people, the right processes, and the right tools. The whole Family Success Center, it's the right tool. So we have to fight for that. Did you also want me to do a status on where we are right now? Or what
That would be great.
We would love that.
All right. So we've literally been in meetings with a lot of our peers. And as you can see, that we have quite a few of our peers who have actually signed on. In the beginning, we were looking at a little over $700 million. We've looked at that. You guys looked at that, and you proposed something which we made an amendment on our bill for the $71 million. I'm happy to say that we have presented that to Assemblywoman Sumter and several others, which they said that that's palatable. And I think we may have a little more work to go. We did sit down with the Speaker of the House, which I'm excited about. We discussed the bill, and he's not opposed to it at all. Matter of fact, I literally submitted that as one of my top 5 priorities to get done during this period. So right now, that's where we are. I know Sumter has to post it in our committee, but that's the status on where we are. But it's not only important to me, but it's also important to my peers that we focus in on the family and make sure that we have the right tools in place. And this bill is one of those tools that's going to help us bring things back to the way it should be. I call it divine alignment. and that's something that we need.
Thank you so much.
Can I just, I have to intercede here and
Sure.
give this audience some sense of how much you, Assemblyman Atkins, has accomplished in such a short period of time. He joined the Assembly in this session. He presented this bill and submitted it without any conversation with us, simply identifying it as in keeping with his mission for joining the Assembly. On his own and with some help from us, but largely on his own initiative, he has garnered 22 sponsors of the bill that he is the prime sponsor of in the Assembly, and has done enormous work to advance both the idea and the legislation, and to find a funding formula that would fit within the political realities of a budget debate, and also brought it to the leadership that has to approve almost any bill before it moves from one place to another committee to the floor to vote. And that includes not only his outreach to the Assembly Speaker Coughlin, but from Union County and a close ally of the Senate President, he has made certain as well that the Senate President is aware of this legislation and supportive of it as well. So I want all of you to recognize what an extraordinary champion Assemblyman Atkins has been. And I would ask, and I'll put this in the chat, that you send his Chief of Staff, Evan Collier, who's on the call, I'll also put his email in. It's very simple, ecollier@nj.leg. Your names and expression that this is an important step forward and that we appreciate what he's doing, so that as we move down the road and the legislation is enacted, we know how to communicate with the Assemblyman, and he knows how to communicate with us as we implement this exciting initiative. And thank you again, Assemblyman Atkins.
Oh, thank you very much. I do want to say, and I appreciate that. You know, families is very, very important. I have, 3 children, and I think that it's and all of them are in college, and I love it, and I thank God for it. But there's families that are hurting. I think the next step of this, Tim, and I should have mentioned this, is that I think that we need to have a writing campaign where we have people such as yourselves and people that's a part of your organization begin to write to Speaker Coughlin, begin to write to our Senate President, as well as the other members of the legislature, and tell them how important it is for us to post this bill and get it across the finish line. This is very important to all the families that's in every area of the state of New Jersey. This bill touches families throughout our state. And we should be on the cutting edge. We should be leading the charge. And I know I'm sounding like a preacher. It's because I am one, and that's how important this is. I don't mind making it a sermon, but we need to start, our writing campaigns about this particular Assembly bill. I'm going to be talking to a couple of churches in my district, and I'm going to try to get them to begin to do a writing campaign. And if everybody will do that, you know, sometimes the squeaky wheel, you know, they get the attention, and we want to make sure that this is in the forefront of everybody's mind every time we go down to Trenton, because that's how important it is. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you, you guys, everyone allowing me to champion this. I just really want to get it across the finish line.
And
That's
thank
what's
you
important.
and
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for
much.
making time to join us this morning.
Yep.
Appreciate it. So I think in light of time, we need to move right into our first agenda item, which is a report on our community action forums, which like everything else with family success seem to be in one sense underfunded and in another sense have a life of their own. And Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce the presentation.
Wonderful. And applause again to Assemblyman Atkins for everything you're doing. I can't tell you how far you helped us move along. But over 3 years ago, we began this whole effort of bringing the learning community into and around a series of different projects that would distill what we have identified as the tools and resources needed to achieve family success. And it included working groups with policy papers around major topics of financial security and early childhood development and positive youth development and fathers and families and parents and community voice. And that went further with support from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to our proposing a series of community action forums that would elicit response from members of the community regarding, are we on the right track about what the needs for your community are and your families? Are we on track in understanding what the challenges and obstacles you face on a daily basis to achieving success, and providing the resources needed to set those obstacles aside and to achieve that pathway? This project has taken on a life of its own. We're now well along the path of getting it underway, in large part thanks to all of you who have put your shoulders to the wheel, convened small group forums, and most importantly, from my perspective, thanks to the extraordinary efforts and leadership that Erica Harris DeValve has provided in organizing these, in enabling members of the learning community and others to have the tools and resources and a framework for making these small group forums happen. And to give you a better description of how that's working and where we stand today, I turn it over to Erica. And thank you again, Erica, for all you are doing.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, so I'll introduce myself a bit. Maybe while I'm doing that, Lori, if you could start pulling up the PowerPoint, that'd be really great. So my name is Erica Harris DeValve. I'm serving as one of the main organizers for the community action forums on the FSI side. And so really in this role, my goal is, of course, to further the mission of the Family Success Movement through these forums by partnering with the many organizations and actors, a lot of you across the state who align with that mission as well. And so I think that the beauty of these community action forums is that they seek first and foremost to platform people, like community folks who just really valuable voices and insights I think are too often overlooked. And so, yeah, this is really important to me. My background is in racial justice and community organizing with a particular focus on how systems of racism, economic inequality, and incarceration in particular impact Black and Brown communities. And so I recently graduated from a seminary program, Master's of Divinity program. And so I am really particularly interested in how faith and faith communities impact justice efforts, community efforts. My most recent community organizing experience was with the George Floyd Global Memorial out in Minneapolis. I worked for 9 months with the community at George Floyd Square. And I worked in memorial preservation and protest with that community, and now I'm back in New Jersey, and this is where I grew up, and I'm really excited and energized to have the opportunity to engage with communities across my home state. This is definitely where my heart is, and so I'm thrilled to be able to be a part of the community action forums and this project. Before we jump into the PowerPoint, Tom, was there anything that you wanted to add?
The one thing I'll add, and I'll say a little bit more about this later, is that when Gene and I started this thing way back, and Charlie Venti was a key partner in this, there were like three of us, and 20 years ago. And what seems to be happening is that the idea itself is so strong. The idea of organizing around people having the chance to have the best life possible, and Kathy Rowe and Doreen certainly epitomize this. It just attracts people. We've never had a lot of money, but these little seed efforts that we seem to start, and they're springing up all over the place. They just the idea and the concept that people might have hope for the future is so powerful that people just gravitate to it. And I think these community action forums, hopefully you'll see that this is another example of the power of the idea and the power of people jumping in and rolling up their sleeves and taking risks. So and we're so lucky to have Erica as part of our team. So Erica, go for it.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, we can go to the next slide. This is just an overview of the community action forums. And really, the aim is to engage with the local, residents of communities in ideally every county of New Jersey in discussions that will illuminate what we hope to be not only, the shortcomings of existing systems and structures in addressing the needs of these communities, but we also hope to identify, the dreams and aspirations of community members, because, those matter, and those are the things that propel change going forward. And so while the hosts and conveners, again, many people on this call are really encouraged to tailor the forum structure to the specific context in which these forums are being hosted, we found that kind of a basic format of small roundtable discussions in which, folks can talk in a small group around a set of questions that the organizers will decide upon, followed by recorded individual interviews. That's really a great way to not only spark these conversations within the communities, but also document the reflections of the folks who are maybe particularly passionate about sharing their thoughts. And so the ultimate goal is to have these forums culminate into a statewide summit, ideally second, third quarter of 2023, and really establish a platform for community members to share their reflections directly with New Jersey leaders and legislators, people who are making decisions. We can go to the next slide. So these are the themes. This is another kind of foundational element or support for the community action forums. We kind of provide these 5 core themes for the conveners to use and build upon. I'm sure these are familiar to a lot of you because they are based on the learning community work group policy papers that have been built out over the last couple of years. And so those papers have really provided a foundation for the discussions that are happening in these community action forums. We've also provided summaries of these papers for all of the conveners to look at and make decisions based on what are ongoing conversations that are already happening in the community that we want to really enter into, and how might those intersect with these themes that our community have already been discussing and kind of building out recommendations around. So that's another kind of foundational element that we provide. But I'll also note that this is definitely more of a guideline. So what's most important to us is that the Community Action Forum conveners build out a discussion that is most relevant to their communities. And so there are community action forums that have been held and also that are being planned that focus on different though intersecting themes like, you know, mental health, migration, and like resettlement, and pregnancy and motherhood. So I just think that's important to know. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So we have also some emerging themes. So the beauty of these forums is that many themes and sub-themes kind of emerge organically through the conversations and the reflections of the participants. And so on this slide, you'll see some examples of that. You know, some things that have stood out to me in watching the videos that have come out of these forums have been, you know, a lot of frustration with what some participants have called dead end resources. So they know resources exist, but at a limited scope or capacity or access to them. There's also, you know, concerns around, of course, like education and school districting for their kids. One participant said basically like, you know, do I need to lie? Like, do I need to lie about my address in order for my child to be able to go to a good school? And there's a lot of concern around, you know, the need to be dishonest in order to get what you need, and that not feeling right. And then, you know, just on a more general scope, like that, the intersection of racial, gender, and economic oppression that shows up in our conversations in many, many different ways. So I just wanted to highlight that. And I was also just particularly struck by a community action forum that was hosted in December by the United Way of Central Jersey and Nurse Family Partnership, with a group of women, many of whom were mothers or soon to be mothers. And in this forum, not only were these women sharing the difficulties that they face in terms of, you know, healthcare and housing, limitations in terms of assistance and resources, you know, much as we might expect, but they also shared really personally with one another too, as mothers and women who could relate to each other. And, you know, at the end of this discussion, when they were sharing their takeaways, one woman said that more than anything, she just appreciated the opportunity to learn from other women who are experiencing motherhood under similar circumstances as her, because she didn't have many friends or peers who were in that same, you know, stage of life. And I just thought that that was really meaningful. And it illuminated an important type of exchange that happens when we have these intentional conversations. So, you know, it's not just an opportunity for us to gain insight, but these are really meaningful opportunities for connection between the people who are participating. We can go to the next slide, Lori. Thank you. Here's a quote from that community action forum that I mentioned. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are, you know, with consent, recording and documenting some of the responses offered by the community members who participate in these forums. And so on this slide, you'll see a quote from one of the participants in the UWCJ Nurse Family Partnership forum. And I just found that to be an important reflection. So this participant said that our rent is pretty cheap, but it comes with a lot of downfall, like holes in the wall and stuff like that. And that's the only way you're going to get cheap rent is if there's something wrong with the place. And that was okay. But then I had him, her baby, and I was like, wait, this place is actually not child safe. So that participant was just reflecting on, you know, she'd been living in these conditions for a long time. And it really wasn't until she had a child that she realized that this was not safe and this was not a good way for her to be living with her child. But, you know, with housing the way that it is, this is the option that she had. And so I just found that to be a really important reflection. When we go to the next slide, there's going to be a quote from Mr. Carl Richardson, who participated in the Center for Family Services Community Action Forum. And I think that should play automatically. So I'll let Lori go to that slide.
Skin. You know, I've said it before, a lot of people have said it, we haven't come too far from Dr. Martin Luther King. George Floyd gave people a lot of momentum, but it seems like it's dying already. And we have to learn to stick together more as a people if we want to get something done. People have to stay focused, they have to stay on track, because these things don't happen overnight. So these are the important things, you know what I mean? The poor communities are there for a reason. And I call it economic slavery. those that be don't want you to get too high up. So they do everything in their power to keep you poor. My daughter's on Section 8. The first thing they tell you is you can't have your family over at the house too often. You know what I mean? They put a limit on that. What is that doing? That's keeping our families broken up and separated. And they put this plan into motion years and years ago, and it's working. They want to keep us down and poor and impoverished. So what happens? These young people get frustrated and they go out and shoot people over dumb stuff because they're frustrated with their life. They don't see where they have much opportunity. You know what I mean? I mean, let's be realistic. A kid can see a guy making a couple $100 a day hustling something, or he can go and make $300 or work all week like a slave at a fast food restaurant or something for some peanuts, where they pay you just enough money to survive. That's the economic slavery thing. So sometimes I really can't blame some of these youths for taking that other route, because they see that there's not much opportunity doing it the right way. If there was more opportunity for these children and people to do, even the fathers, they need more of those programs where they teach you trades and stuff like that. Sure, there's some out there, but there aren't many of them. There need to be more of them. You know what I mean? You have a problem getting a job? Well, I want to be an electrician. Go to a free school, become an electrician. All of a sudden now you're making a decent living for your family. They have to make these programs more available to people.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, so this video, there's a long video from the CFS Community Action Forum with amazing, amazing reflections. This video struck me just because I think that it touches upon so many of the different intersecting issues that we want to give attention to in these forums. And, you know, I think that just in 2 minutes alone, Mr. Richardson spoke about, you know, oppressive economic structures, systemic inequality, racism, unfair policies, lack of mobility, solidarity and unity, labor, wages, family and community dynamics, violence, mentorship, limitations of resources and programming, education and accessibility to education. Like the list goes on. And I think that this video in particular just struck me as, you know, such a clear illustration of why these forums are so important. You know, the voices of community members like Mr. Richardson are, in my opinion, you know, the most important, and they need to be centralized if we have any hope of progress. So yeah, I feel like that encapsulated a lot, and there's a lot more where that came from, which is exciting. Okay, so just quickly to look at the logistics side of things, you know, we wanted to keep the flow of the community action forums fairly decentralized in order to reach kind of far and wide across New Jersey and maintain the flexibility needed to be contextually relevant across many different communities. And so, you know, but we also wanted to provide you know, any support resources that the conveners may need as they're planning. And so I created a community action forum, you know, convener toolkit. You can kind of see some screenshots of that here. And it, you know, it just houses all of the reference materials, forms, and content that the community action forum organizers may need as they're planning the forum. And if anybody, you know, wants to take a look at that, you can shoot me an email. I'd be happy to share it with you. Okay, we can go to the next slide, Lori. So this is just a look at some of our partners. Here you can see the organizations that have hosted or are currently planning to host a community action forum. And this list is growing, which is really exciting. And then we have also just a list of the forums that have happened, forums that are going to be happening soon. We, you know, are just so excited about the enthusiasm that these forums have been met with and the effort that has gone into planning them from our partners. We can go to the next slide. So local initiative and innovation. This is something that we wanted to highlight because, like I said, the enthusiasm from our partners has just been really amazing. There's been a lot of organic growth of this project, where we're seeing, series of forums being held in individual communities, counties, cities. And so this is just a quick look at that, looking ahead, what we have to look forward to. And I believe that is everything. Thanks so much for your attention as I went through, the process behind these community action forums. I'm really excited about it, and I'm so glad that so many of you are excited about it too. And if there are any questions, I can answer those, or Tim and Tom as well.
Thank you, Erica. And what a great moment to recognize what a resource you have been to this effort, to this project. It's an extraordinary piece of work, and for that, thanks. And all those of you who may be new to this forum project, or sort of had it on a back burner, if you have interest in trying to convene a small group to share thoughts and ideas, reach out to Erica directly, or to Lori Henry, or to me, and we'll get you into the flow of this and make certain that you have both an understanding of how these administrative pieces come together, and we have a better understanding of how you believe you can best reach the audience and participants that need to be heard. And if it wasn't obvious from the video commentary, I'll just reinforce a primary goal here is to elevate those voices and ideas and initiatives to an audience that has the capacity and the obligation to respond effectively to the challenges that are articulated there. Thanks so much. Tom, back to you. You're in mute.
Probably a blessing that I'm on mute. So one of the terms that keeps coming up is the term organic. And it seems to be popping up in a number of places. It's become quite a term in Monmouth County. But I think one of the things that's becoming apparent to me is, and it goes back to reflecting, Gene, on when this all started, is there used to be a guy I worked with in the Division of Mental Health and Hospitals who used to say the bag is out of the cat. And I could never figure out what he was talking about. But what's going on here, and I think, Dominique, some of the conversations we've had, all the work that you all are doing, it's been unleashed. It's not going to stop. The fact that it's community-based, it's grassroots, it's in Camden, it's in Newark, it's in Monmouth County, it's in Middlesex County. I think of the work that Doreen and Kathy are being doing. This movement is not going to go away. Karen, I think about the first times we talked about fathers and where you've come with your efforts, and you're not going away. The father initiative, they're happening. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have is not only how do we take it more and more local, but how do we connect all of you so that you become, the driving force that makes sure that it doesn't go away. So that's one of the things I think we're going to try to have a conversation about at another meeting is, how can we bind this movement together without ruining it? Because the more you try to centralize things, the more you're headed towards ruination. So, so the next area on the agenda has to do with voices from the community. And I just want to give a little bit of a sort of preface to this, and I'm going to try to keep this brief. But as I mentioned, I've been out of commission for a bit in terms of being out in the work world and everything. And it has given me an opportunity to sit back and, read reports and talk to people, from a little different vantage point. And the thing that has struck me so much is if you look at all the different symptoms of youth distress that are going on. And I just saw there was this report that came out a couple of days ago about suicidal teens flooded New Jersey emergency rooms again in 2022. And it's just really a frightening report in terms of the numbers of kids whose are going to emergency rooms because there's worry that they're going to be they're going to take their lives. And then you look at not only in New Jersey but sweeping the country are these mall riots. I mean, and there are kids planning mall riots all over the country. We've had, some incidents in New Jersey, but there's some dramatic ones in other parts of the country where these mall riots are they're epidemic. And then obviously you've had some terrible stories about, stabbings and shootings and so that the disease and distress among, our kids is just, I think it's probably, bigger than we can even imagine. And our response to it, which is completely appropriate, is how do we respond to the crises? And how do we, deal with the distress the kids are feeling? And both in New Jersey and, nationwide, the primary response is, youth mental health services. And I think they are completely appropriate and they're absolutely necessary. And we have to, help people when they're in trouble. But if we don't deal with what's really going on that's causing all this, the underlying causes that are both very concrete and very practical that Erica highlighted, as well as the alienation and the disconnection and the feelings of just hopelessness that people are feeling. If we don't get to that level, we are never going to have enough mental health services to pick up the pieces of what's happening in our communities. And I don't even know what to say about it. I'm an old person, and I have never seen an environment that is so wrought and scared, and the feelings are just, there's this feelings of hopelessness. And I honestly believe that the work that you're all doing, and particularly if we can come together and, keep this force of progress going, that's going to be the antidote to what's going on. And so our voices from the community are three people who have been involved with us very much from the beginning. The first is the former executive director of the Community Planning and Advocacy Council in Camden County, and CPAC has been a advocate from before I was even involved in the New Jersey human service scene, which is a long time. But Deanna Cooper is now in retirement, and she is not speaking as the head of CPAC. She's speaking as a mom and a grandmom about her experiences in terms of what's happening with her family. So Deanna, I'll ask you to have a couple of words.
And you got to come off mute.
These pop-ups. Oh,
There you
there it is.
are.
Okay, this is my own personal old iPad. So, and I couldn't get rid of the pop-ups, and I didn't want to touch anything. And the mute button was under the pop-up. Well, good morning. And I haven't added my full name on this laptop yet, but anyway, I'm still Deanna Cooper Vanderlip. That has not changed. And I just want to say, Tom, I've had, I don't want to say I had the pleasure of reading that article that you sent, because when I read it, it was totally disheartening. And I responded to think that, we as a society has to come to such a state of being. And reading about all this, and personally, I truly do not think that this is all just related to the pandemic. I think the pandemic had a lot to do with it, but I think it's a combination of the pandemic, unqualified leadership during the pandemic, and the blatant display of racism in our country that we were all forced to look at during the pandemic. But as you said, how do we begin to turn this around for our future generations? Family success to me is more than just a movement. It is now clearly a necessity, as the article pointed out, and things that we've heard today. And my gratitude to our legislators for their continued support and commitment to the proposed legislation. My husband and I are raising grandchildren. They're junior and senior in high school now. And we we find it challenging because during the pandemic, I know we were old people, but they would come home and go in their room, close the doors, and stayed away from us. And it became a norm around here, and it was challenging. It's a boy and a girl. The senior in high school now is about to graduate, and his essay was that was the best time of his life. He enjoyed being in his room during that time. He's been accepted at about 5 or 6 different colleges with some, scholarships. But it was so different because the little girl, she was very social, and now she was stuck in her room. But we've started like implementing like family dinner night and things, because I find that it's hard to communicate with them and to see what they're going through. And they had some friends over, so it was Sunday, and I said, "Oh no, we're having Sunday dinner. If your friend is here, he's going to have Sunday dinner with us." But I stay away when we have company. We do not discuss politics or religion, because that will take them away from you quickly. And I had saw an article about escape rooms, and I asked them what they thought of that, since they do a lot of things online. And also it was enough to get, I try to find something interesting to talk about that they might be interested in. And they, shared about that. Then I also implement family movie night. And interesting enough, because when Tom asked me to speak, I spoke with the little girl, who's not a little anymore. She's a junior in high school. And I wanted to know, I start asking them questions and say, "What do you think?" And what surprised me enough is she told me she's a history buff. She said not as much as her Uncle Leonard, he's a little extreme, but she told me the movie we're going to watch next is The Patriot with Mel Gibson from 2000. But she said the reason she watches her movies alone is because she doesn't want to be distracted by others' comments. She likes to form her own opinion. And I was really interested in having last month being Black History Month and all. But to sum it up, some of the things I try not to do is not to compare them as siblings, because they're totally different, raised in the same house. One is an achiever, get his work done, everything. The girl, more of a procrastinator, but still very intelligent. And so when they got their report cards, one of the things I just asked the brother, I said, "Okay, what do we do?" Because some of her grades were not, to me acceptable, when I know she can do better. It wasn't that she couldn't. So he actually said to me, instead of taking away some of her social media time, he said, we should reward her for the good grades and give her more time for the homework she does and bringing the other grades up. And I said, wow, it's the same thing, but just looking at it, like you say, success, instead of distress, and I said, wow. And so I thought that was really good. And I even told her, I said, well, your brother suggested this. And she said, he said that? But when I talked with her, she said, and these are her words, she said, basically, parents have to put themselves in their child's shoes so they can see what they see. And after thinking about that, and we talked, what we see, and we can't really put ourselves in their shoes. 45 years ago, I was only 20. And I didn't grow up with Atari and all of the computers and everything and things that they have now. It wasn't even, I don't even think Atari was created then. And so, and that's really old. Some of y'all might not even know what I'm talking about, because when you work with people who are 45 or under, they look at you like, what? So one of the other things she said to me was that the world is changing progressively faster. We check out our things in the supermarket, everything, you do it yourself, all the electronics. And she said, life is not as easy today the way things are now. And I can understand why people get stressed out, because I talk to her. I find her to be very moody sometimes. And I asked what's going on, but she said history has changed and it's still changing, the laws for women, children, and things of that nature. So I'm very glad to be a part of hoping to change some of this. And one of the other things, this is really what touched me. One of the things that I noticed she do, I go to her room when I hear different voices on her computer and who she's talking to. They sound my age or much older than her. But she does this thing called online parenting. In a sense, she has a group of young people and she's like a mentor. And it's like a parent and they listen to her. And she's online sometimes. And I said, "You're supposed to be asleep." She said, "No, somebody was going through something." So it's sort of like their own internal helpline. So Kathy, we're on the right track here with Parents Inc. And she said, "There's one youth who really," and I said, "Well, why do you think they listen to you?" And I said, are they not able to communicate with their parents? She said, "For the most part." And she said, and I said, "Well, do they listen to them?" She said, "Well, there's one who basically only listens to her." But I also told her how dangerous that could be. Suppose someone else had gained that trust from that person and they didn't have that person's best interest, you know. So I wanted to explain to her why I was doing what I was doing and following up. So basically, she ended up telling me that next year, her senior year, she wants to take some classes in child development, which I thought was good. But to summarize this all up, I also watched Good Morning America, and last week they had a segment on conscious parenting. This is the new buzzword. And they talked about a book by Dr. Shafoli, and it's called The Parenting Map. What made me feel good, it only reinforced what I had already found out. And just to give you some points, they said, relinquish your role to control children, not us against them. And we need to be in charge of them, but not control them. And we should not create you against me scenarios. Use if and then instead. You know, if you do this, then this will happen, etc. Allow children to have a voice at the table instead of, you know, a lot of children, you know, from our day, children were supposed to be seen, but not heard. They need a voice. We need to listen to them first, then react. We need to love our children for who they are. We need to stay connected when we set boundaries and allow them to live life and learn life lessons, some natural consequences. And I told her that the example they gave, I told her, I said, "I swear I didn't talk to these people. The example they gave was if you don't clean your room, then you're inviting mice to share the room with you." And she laughed because I always tell her, no eating in your bedroom, blah, blah, blah. But finally, they said it's never too late to change your relationship with your children. And this was stuff that we were already doing, but to hear somebody else say it. And I just want to thank all of you and Erica for the community action forums. And I'd be interested in knowing what a forum with just youth would, you know, bring to the table for us. But thank you.
Phew. Thank you, Deanna. So this is what retirement's like, huh?
Yes, I love retirement.
So Deanna is now on the board of Parents Inc. She's becoming much more active in the family success movement, and she's obviously doing the real work at home with her own family. And I think that all these levels are what it's going to take to, you know, to make a difference. And I see that Commissioner Byer has joined us. And hi, Christine. Very, very nice to see you. And so I'll give you a couple minutes because I know you hate it when I spring things on you, but we will be back to you, and really glad you're here. Our next voice from the community is somebody who is as retiring as Deanna Cooper. Desiree White is somebody who I've gotten to know professionally, but also as a friend. Desiree originally worked with Gene in the Kid Connection up in North Jersey, and has now ascended to be Assistant Director of Human Services in Monmouth County. She's a specialist in everything. So how can you be a specialist in everything? It's because you're really smart and you're really committed and you're funny and you have more energy than just about anybody I've ever seen. But Desiree is here not as a county official today, but as a mom to talk about her observations about what the hell's going on out there. So Desiree, go for it.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. Yes, it is a small world. I met Tom when we got to talking the first time, and we realized that I worked for Kid Connection and he worked with Gene on building that program. And it's the universe putting people together who are supposed to find their way to each other. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So Tom and I have been talking this week about these issues going on that he mentioned, and I took the opportunity. I have 3 children, 2 of the 3 are teenagers, 14-year-old girl and 16-year-old boy. And we communicate frequently about all these tough things, right? I always like to hear the voice of the kids because we think we know everything as the grown-ups, but the reality is their perception is often very different in what our perception is. So I took the chance last night to talk to them about what's going on, and I asked them, very specific questions as well as their thoughts on not only what's causing it, but what could be done to address it and prevent it from continuing to happen. So I just took some notes so I didn't forget the things that they said. They both agreed that the factors that contribute to bullying, kids wanting to get into fights, these riots, all that other kind of stuff, is there's multiple factors that feed into it. One of them, which I was a little bit surprised to hear about, was just plain boredom, that kids don't have enough to keep themselves busy and entertained in a positive way. So they find other things to sort of fill that. And then another thing that they shared was that a lot of youth do not have role models. They're repeating behaviors that they see in their home, in their community. They don't have people that are teaching them how to communicate and problem solve. What they've seen in their community is you solve an issue by fighting or arguing or whatever, and they don't know how to do it another way. They also talked about sometimes these behaviors give kids a sense of importance and gives them attention that they might not be getting in a positive way. And they also spoke to a lot of kids growing up with trauma, and that fills you with anger often, and then that comes out, with these behaviors. They also said that it's a distraction from your life. If you're engaging in this drama, as they like to say, whatever that drama is, it's a distraction from whatever you have going on in your feelings within yourself, about yourself, about your own family, about your own circumstances. It's a distraction. So then we talked about, what do we do to address this? Obviously, we're responding to the crisis with mental health services and all of that's great. But what are some other things that can be done, and what could be done to prevent this from continuing to increase at disturbing, rates that it is now? And so they talked about teaching problem-solving skills and teaching kids how to communicate. And they said that they think that is not just falls on the families, but also schools. They said that schools a lot of times address bullying or fights amongst students from a punitive perspective. They separate the kids, you get punished, you get suspended, whatever it is. And then they said whatever that, beef was at school, then they just take care of it out in the community. So, all right, well, I can't get you in school because they have eyes on us now, we're suspended or whatever, I'm going to get you outside of school. And that's when you see that carry over into the harassment over social media and kids, seeing someone in the mall and using that as an opportunity to address whatever they felt needed to be addressed. So they think that schools should do better at intervention with helping to teach, communication skills and, those problem solving skills and how to manage emotions in a more positive way. And they also talked about, sorry, I'm just looking through my notes. I didn't want to forget. They said they had very thoughtful responses to this conversation. So they also talked about a little bit, they didn't get too deep into this, but what they were trying to say was the cycle of poverty and about growing up in certain environments and how that impacts you and how it's, generational. A lot of these kids, they're modeling what they've seen their mom do, their dad do. They don't know any other way. So you can address the kid all you want, but you really have to look at supporting the family and helping the whole family learn how to communicate and address problems in a different way. There's, a lot of times that, youth have an issue at school, they go home, they might tell mom or dad or whoever the caretaker is in the home. The caretaker's response is, well, when you go to school tomorrow, you better mess that person up. And they're encouraged because that's the only way they have known to survive and to handle disagreements and that sort of thing. So they were talking about supporting not just the kid and helping them learn a different way, but supporting the family. And as a mom, I thought their responses were really thoughtful and mature and thorough. And I don't know that I have anything to add. I think they were spot on. And, you know, I do think I think Miss Deanna had said something about more being a societal issue. You know, it goes beyond just, you know, any particular home. You know, we really have to look at what are we doing as a society to our youth. You know, with between social media and media in general, you know, institutional structural racism, you know, cycles of poverty, all of that contributes to this cycle of kids not knowing how to problem solve and communicate and respond to their thoughts and feelings and disagreements in a healthy way. So I don't know that I have anything else to add, but.
Thank you so much, Des. You know, what's so interesting about this is that it seems like the, you know, sort of some of the solutions that people are imagining are much closer, not even to community or into, you know, community organizations, you know, but at the, you know, at the family level. And how do we safely connect with people in a human way, not in an official way, but in a human way, to talk about, you know, some of these you know, questions that we're all raising. And then the other aspect of it is not at the administrative or, you know, bureaucratic executive level, but at the policy level. What do we stand for as a society? And I think that, you know, the Assemblyman Atkins was, you know, talking about, if we don't have legislation that is making rights for people and creating resources for people with different processes, we're not going to get to where we have to get, because it's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of effort, both at the, you know, the policy level but most importantly at the human level. And I can't stress enough what I've observed in my sort of being away from things is the degree of alienation from every single angle that, you know, people are experiencing. I mean, it goes from people, there's so many people who are suffering from allergies because, you know, we don't have weathers that freeze anymore. And, you know, I mean, it cuts across the board. And the only way this is going to change is by all of us forging ahead. And there's nothing, I believe that nothing can stop us now. I'm seeing Carolyn McCombs, and I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about your recent success, Carolyn, but can I? So as you know, there was a long effort by Institute for Social Justice to work with the legislature to get some funding and policy changes around juvenile justice for kids. Juvenile justice for kids, that's sort of redundant. And we were lucky enough to have Retha Onateri, who's also been a member of our learning community, to lead that charge. And legislation was passed, and it was known as the Restorative Justice Act. And I believe that the first grant has recently been made. Took a little while, and it didn't. The money that was supposed to go didn't all go where it's supposed to go to the community. But Carolyn McCombs, who was a member of our Family Success Institute board and the head of New Destiny Family Success Center, which is just a, you know, incredible place, has been awarded the first restorative justice grant in the state to work with kids in a very, very different way than has traditionally been made. So Carolyn, do you want to say just a couple of words about this? And congratulations to you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for all the support from our committee, the Institute. I've been inspired, Retha Onateri, the work of Salvation and Social Justice that really forged the path to get this legislation to become a reality. And I've been involved with those conversations almost from the beginning. So when the opportunity was presented to present a solution that would divert youth and away from incarceration, while also providing wraparound services to families. I said, wow, that's a perfect, synergy between what we do as a family success movement and our interest in youth development. So we put forward a grant which I think really represented the best we had to offer as a community. We're partnering with 11 different agencies all around everything from housing to mental health to substance abuse prevention, to peer counseling, as well as, and I think Rosie Grant is on the call as well, implementing peace circles and using that model as a way to bring reconciliation in the community so that the students and the youth don't have to take the fight to the streets. Let's get in a peace circle and see how we can talk this out and negotiate a resolution. So we had a great support from our community, including our school district, Superintendent Schaefer, and housing authority, so many, Bob Garachi from NJCDC, so many came together and rallied and said, yes, we will support New Destiny in responding to this. And we're just excited for the opportunity. We have a space identified. We're in the middle of having a recreation center renovated that will be the home of the Restorative and Transformative Justice Dream Center. And thank you.
Congratulations again, Carol. That's just terrific. So our next voice is somebody who I've come to think of as, I don't know, I can't remember what the right term is, Thomas Owens, with the oracle of family success or the guru of family success. But from the first time I met you, you have, inspired me, and I'm just amazed by the work you're doing. And I'd ask you to give us the sense of the world from your perspective and some of the things you're working on.
Well, thank you. First, I want to thank everybody for the work you guys are doing and these calls. This is like always kind of quiet inspiration to be on these calls, to see the work that's been done all over the place. When you were talking about parents earlier, and the biggest challenge I've seen with young people, when I talk to them, and we're working in about 15 of the schools here in high schools here in Newark, developing mentoring opportunities. We're doing mentoring in a different way. No cookie cutter, everyone's different based on what the students want. And it's amazing because we had one school at Arts High School, they wanted to create a mentoring lab, and they wanted to look like a barbershop, and they wanted to have it where they could have it, they call it the shop, and they wanted to take photo shoots. So we ended up doing all of that. We ended up getting a person, one of our developers in the city, had a barbershop that was empty, and he donated all equipment from the barbershop. So now the kids have this full place, and they developed, then they found out one of the kids is an artist. Now we have a whole wall that's going to be done as an art gallery, but the whole thing is creating a space in the school for the young people to do the work around mentoring. But I think one of the things that touched me the most, we took the kids to IKEA to kind of pick up the materials and build desks and all that. And as I was walking around with one of the young ladies, she had a look on her face, and I'm like, what's the problem? And her thing was, well, we didn't think you would do it, because most times adults talk all that stuff, but y'all don't ever do anything. And it kind of hit me. She was like, wow, actually for adults, the follow through is like one of the most important things we can do, is to show up consistently and be there. It's a song by Common, the rapper, there's a line in it called where he says, we write songs about wrong because it's hard to see right. And I think a lot of times the young people, they're just kind of looking at us, all the stuff that we're saying life is supposed to be, and we're supposed to be as an adult. Many cases, we're not that. And then that breaks down the trust with them, and that gives you the chaos and the madness. When I look at how young people now are kind of processing it, and I would ask you to ask them when you talk to them, ask them what they think about George Santos. Not politics, nothing, but just the fact that somebody could just say, I just lied consistently, but this person is still an elected official. And we're telling them, be honest, be good. That's how you'll get ahead. They're like, nah, that's how you get ahead. I hear what you're saying, but that's not what's happening. You know, so a lot of times we give them stuff that they look at as not really real. It's a great line. I'm a reader. It's a great line in Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me. And it's a line that I proposed to teachers one time. It was a really good discussion. The line was, when I was in school, I liked some of my teachers. I even loved some of my teachers, but I didn't believe any of them. So I think my big thing this year with working with young people is how do we become believable as adults? Because I think that's like the first step to leading and actually having them trust us again. And then if they trust us, then they'll confide, like you talked about earlier, then they'll confide in us and then they'll look for a direction. But if we're as caught up in the madness and as out there as they are, why would they come to us? You know, what they do is they try to find their own solutions based on a limited amount of experience they may have, and they do what they do. You know, so I'm really this year being really cognizant about listening to them and actually asking them questions. And what do you feel? Why are you doing this? What's this about? And not walking, as someone said over earlier, with the power over mindset, not walking in the room, I'm the adult, I know everything. And therefore, you know, you need to listen to me. But sometimes just kind of shutting up and asking them questions. And then this last one for me, I think young people want us to do, is really, really examine who we are, what we love, and what we do. You know, because I met with a group of Black male teachers. And in this room, I had about 20 teachers in the room. And I asked, the question we asked up front was, how many people watch Power? And some of the shows that 50 Cent produces on HBO, on Showtime. And they were like, oh yeah, we watched last week and they shot this person, boom, boom. And they knew all the plots and everything. And then we asked them, do you know, you watch Snowfall? Oh yeah, Snowfall. That's the one. So what's that about? That's about crack coming to America and crack in the Black neighborhoods. What did crack do in the Black neighborhoods? Oh, it did this and it destroyed that and it killed that. Then we asked them, so the last question we asked them, so what about that's entertaining? And they were like, well, so how, and then the other part was, how do we now reconcile going into school the next day and telling kids, don't do drugs, don't get involved in this, when you watched it all last night and you were entertained by it? So it's like, one of the questions for us is, it's very hard to defeat, and this goes back to Tom's point about what the struggles that kids are dealing with as opposed to direct relationship struggles that we're dealing with. And one of the things that David Miller from Baltimore always says, it's very difficult to defeat the demons that you like playing with. So, you know, one of the things that we like to do that are also hurting us, that we might have to look at and say, I might need to give that up. Maybe that wasn't as cool as I thought that was, you know, and maybe I shouldn't give that to kids. Maybe I shouldn't have put that kid on my lap and told him that Menace to Society was a classic movie. Maybe I set some of this stuff in place. And maybe this is the last big statement, but maybe it's time for us to look at kids in the face and say, you know something, I apologize. As an adult, we haven't really done what we're supposed to do for you. Give me a second chance. You know, I'm gonna try to do this better. As opposed to saying you're wrong as a kid, you know, maybe just admitting that maybe we've made some mistakes and give me a chance, I'll fix it. You know, and for people that love, my last piece is a song. Anybody, by raise a hand, anybody familiar with the play Sweeney Todd? Any Broadway fans? Yeah. Just for inspiration, go online, look up the song from that musical called Not While I'm Around. That will really kind of put in place who we're supposed to be. And it says, nothing will ever harm you, not while I'm around. Demons it talks about demons, everything's out there, but I'll find a way to make sure nothing ever harms you. And that's the contract we have with young people. And if we get back to that, what they do will be remarkable. And we're looking forward to doing a youth-based community action forum. We've got some kids that for the last 6 months have been working to create legislation and training. So we've got two high schools that have been trained. We had them in DC during January, during National Mentoring Month. They were actually down there advocating for funding. So they met with their congressmen, with their senators. So that's the team that's going to do it. And those two schools now are about to start training the other schools in Newark. And the goal is by the end of this year that all the schools will have a youth advisory council for mentoring. And then we'll pull all of them together. Then the leaders of those groups will actually have a place on my board. So we can always have a student voice in our ear about the work that we're doing. So it takes a year to get there because we didn't want to just pick kids. We wanted kids to really learn and be trained on how to do this. So they're getting ready. And as we do up, they're going to be actually the ones doing our first community action forum. It'll be kids doing it. So in a nutshell, that's it. You know, not while I'm around is listen to that. It's going to inspire you. It's probably going to make you cry. But it's a beautiful song, and I think it's the contract that we have with young people. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for being with us. But what the work you're doing is just amazing. I keep wondering to Thomas why, and I have a very close friend on his board. Why isn't the name of your organization Mentor New Jersey? Because what you're doing ought to be everywhere. It ought to be universal. And one thing that is striking to me in each of these presentations has to do with sort of three words that our communities are losing because of what's happening in our world. One is trust, and it goes up and down the line and across every relationship. And if we can't find ways to build trusting relationships that are based upon mutual respect and listening, we're not going to make progress. Secondly is connection. And I was going to pull a book off the shelf I have here about lost connections. And it's a story about depression from the perspective of the degree of connection that people have, and the relationship between connections and depression and anger and violence and all these things. And so somehow we have to find a way that we stay connected, and that all the work that you're doing, in your communities are connected. And then the final word that I keep coming back to is something that I associate with strength, and the way that the sort of world is developing is sort of associated with weakness, and that is love. And if we can't approach this work with love, and sort of drop the idea that I'm a professional here, but I'm a person here, we have to if we don't dig into what's going on right now, things are going to continue to get a lot worse.
Tom,
so
there's one thing I would tell you to take a look at. Once again, for me, I'm a book and movie buff. I would tell everybody to watch. There's a movie called Grand Canyon that stars Danny Glover. There's a great scene in that where a gentleman, his car breaks down, and kids kind of come up like they're going to rob him. And as they're about to go through this robbery, Danny Glover comes up with a tow truck and just starts hooking the guy's truck up. It's a great scene because the kid walks up to Danny Glover, and Danny Glover pulls up to him and says, "Listen, you may be too young or maybe too silly to know this, but it's not supposed to be like this. He's supposed to be able to break down wherever he wants to break down. I'm supposed to be able to come here. You're not supposed to rob him. You just don't know. It's not supposed to be like this." And sometimes, once again, that conversation with young people, just, hey, it's not that fight you did yesterday. It's not supposed to be like this. We shouldn't have to do it that way. But then also be prepared for them to say, so what about the reality shows and all the stuff on TV? Those are all adults. So if it's not supposed to be like for kids, then you guys as adults, you've got to acknowledge, hey, you guys aren't right either. And then maybe start from a place of forgiveness and love that we can move forward in a better way.
I'm trying to come up with a word that's, I think I sent a note to some folks, amen and a women. Amen is sexist, but a person. So Christine, the first time that we talked about your coming to the learning community, I asked you a question, and your answer was so refreshing. And the question was, can I talk to you both as a commissioner of a very large and important department, and can I talk to you as Christine Beyer, human being, person who's not in that position? So I'm going to take the liberty that you afforded me to ask you to reflect on this as Christine Beyer, mom, human being, and not so much as the public official as the head of that department, if that's okay.
Yeah, it might not be easy, but I'll do it because there's so much work stuff that I want to say too and share. But thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'm sorry I was late in joining this morning, and just really appreciate all of what I had the opportunity to hear today, this morning, and the reflections from all of you who spoke. I was like making notes as people were talking, and putting exclamation marks next to things that I heard, and one of just thinking about where we are with the youth crisis and youth mental health crisis. And I am a mother myself of a teenager in high school, and who is an introvert for the most part and likes to spend time by himself, and so navigating and negotiating, like, how much time alone in your room is okay without your mother knocking on the door and saying, like, what are you doing, and who are you talking to, and are you okay? And then thinking about when I do come to work and the things that come across my desk, and unfortunately, the very large number of suicides we've had in young people aged 10 to 24, just in this year alone, in the last few months, almost 2 a week. And, and thinking about what does that mean, for our communities, and, what are we doing for our children and parents who many times are struggling and not knowing themselves what to do or how to support their children. And, some of the reflections that I heard, that really resonate with me, and that I've been thinking a lot about, both in my role as a parent and in my role as commissioner, is about building resilience in young people, building resilience in our workforce, building resilience in communities, because hope, I think, is one of and research shows, hope is one of the strongest reasons and the strongest feelings of why people thrive and survive and can pull themselves up out of challenging situations. And so how do we build resilience? How do we instill that and that sense of hope in our young people, in our communities? And then the other thing is connections. We talk a lot about connections. It's one of the things I talk about in the department, is everyone being safe, healthy, and connected. But real connections, I think, there's a lot that we hear in the media about social media and the impact that that's having on young people. And I do believe that there's some truth to that. But I don't think that's the only thing. And I think the lack of real connections, because you're connecting with people online, you're connecting with strangers online, and that seems like you're connecting, but it's not a real, I can leave my room or I can leave my house, and if I'm having a problem, there's somebody I can talk to, or I feel connected with, or I can just cry with, or be happy with, or share joy and sorrow. And so I think that's the other challenge that we have, is like in this space, in this world now where young people really are very connected to technology, how do we help them to build real connections within their own families, within each other, within their schools, so I would just say, like, as a parent, those are a lot of things, some of the things that I've been reflecting on, and then so to hear, and then thinking, how do I bring it into the work, and then to hear what many of you are saying. And I love the idea of love, and saying, like, that is what needs to be present and, right at the forefront of our work. I have a colleague, someone that I used to work with, and her organization that she runs is really built on this whole idea of what would love do. And so if you're stuck and you don't know, how to help a family, how to help a young person, it's, going back to, well, what would love do? And so what can we do, thinking. So a lot of times I will say that if I don't really know what to do for the young person sitting in front of me, but what would love do? And how can I be there for them in a different way? And so I think that's something also to consider as we move forward. There's a lot of good work, I think, that's happening across the state. And I appreciate the forum like this to be able to hear it all and pull it together and, think about hearing Thomas, what you're doing at the Mentor Newark programs and with young people, and I'm reflecting on the work of our youth council, and, their program that they created and envisioned and then created and got funded, just launched, and that listening now to our young people who are part of that process, the empowerment that they feel is like it's a reason to come to work every day. I'll say that. It's like that's the group, if I'm having a bad day, I want to be with, because they're so excited and they have hope now of what they can accomplish in their future, and don't see having been in foster care as a limit. They see it as an opportunity to use their experience to help others, and to think about, just the opportunities maybe that now are open to them that they didn't think, 2 years ago when they started with our youth council legislation that just got passed on the Sibling Bill of Rights. And now they're like really chomping at the bit about, so now how do we get it out there? What do we need to do, to really change things? So I just got a text this morning from one of the young people on the youth council, feels like he's jumping out of his skin because he wants to be helpful to other young people and yet feels like he's being held back and doesn't know how to fix the programs that he knows are hurting young people, because he's listening to young people in, transitional living programs that are not getting the support that they need. And so I have so much hope for the future of our young people here in New Jersey, because of folks like you, because of the work that you're all doing and the commitment that you have. And I, for myself and our staff here at DCF, they really are the ones, and our parents, people who have been impacted by our system are really going to be the ones to lead the way. And so that's it. So that was as a parent, Tom, and as a person who lives in community in New Jersey. But I also want to just say that as the commissioner, I'm really excited that in the governor's proposed budget earlier in the week, there was $60 million in new growth for prevention that came into, prevention services that is coming to the Department of Children and Families, and equal to monies that we're getting for intervention or for, providers to try and shore them up. But that's pretty significant. And that's something that, while New Jersey DCF has really been working toward this goal of more prevention services, more upfront, you don't have to become involved with the child welfare system in order to get services. This is now another $60 million that goes to that. 43 million for our NJ4S program, which is around, prevention and brief intervention in schools and communities. And that RFP has gone out, and we're selecting providers now to launch that in the next school year. Universal home visiting, we got more money to launch universal home visiting, which will be a complete game changer for, new families and births in New Jersey. Those RFPs for our first round of providers will be going out in the next few weeks, and then some additional monies for our Family First plan, and being able to now engage model developers on some of the evidence-based prevention programs that the federal government, has determined we can start claiming federal matching funds on. So all of those things will begin to be, launched in the next year. So I think, we'll start to see, we've already had this shift of trying to right size our system and put more money into prevention and upfront services. And this is another $60 million to start to move that needle further. So just really happy to share that as well.
Great. Thanks
for
so
the
much,
opportunity.
Christine.
And I'm sorry, Tom, can I just take license to also introduce Katie Burgott, who is our new Office of Family Voice Director. She's on the call with me today. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that, she's now with the Office of Family Voice. She's been with us for a few months. Comes to us with a lot of great experience, also worked with the feds, but I think some of you on the phone maybe know her, worked with her in the past, and we're just really excited to have her leading that work.
Hi, Katie. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I
and-
see it's
and-
just about 10, but it's really nice to be here. And I do, Kid Connection is repping like hard on this call right now. So that's really cool.
Oh, good. That's great. That was a
But yeah, I do look forward to working with everybody. I'm very excited to hear about everything going on.
terrific. And we'd love to, continue our dialogue. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Before we go into the legislation, I hope you could just take another 10 minutes for this call, but Christine and I have developed an ability to talk about issues that we may not agree upon or see the same way with love. So I'm going to offer a comment that somehow our industry has found a way to continue to spend billions of dollars on all these issues, trying to respond to all these distress. And yet we're in a place where we have kids killing themselves and stabbing each other and all this kind of stuff. And I think that there's something that we all could search for in the middle of all this work. And I think it's at the individual level and the family level and community level. And I'm looking at Bob Garassi's face because I know that Bob has been, working in where the Great Falls are, and he's another leader who is not going to stop. I mean, this movement it's unleashed. But I think the thing that we're still struggling for is our soul. And soul is in every person. It's buried deep inside every single person, no matter what their lives are like. Every community, and I've worked in most communities in New Jersey now, and it's there. Sometimes it's not apparent unless you go out and look for it and find it. But I also believe there can be soul in higher levels. But I will say just two quick things, Christine. I think that if we don't recognize now that the days of central big bureaucracies and big centralized organizations are not the key to the solutions of the future, then I don't think we're really being honest with ourselves. And then secondly, from the day that family success was imagined, it wasn't prevention. Prevention, if you look at it, I remember when we created the self-help clearinghouse years ago, and there are that clearinghouse, I think it still exists, but I remember the last time I looked at it, it had something like, I don't know, 200 prevention programs that were to prevent 200 bad things from happening. And the whole idea of family success is, we do need to have prevention. I'm not arguing against that. But the whole idea of family success is to find our souls and to dig into the kinds of changes, encourage and fear, scary. But what is it going to take for us to move from preventing bad things to happening to putting all of our energy into good things happening, not only for people, but with people? And as I've listened to this conversation, and I can't remember who said it. Desiree was talking about that as she was listening to her kids that and trying to figure out what she might add to what they know is going to be helpful. She couldn't come up with anything else. And the more that we include people in a powerful way in what we do and do it together, we got to find our soul together. That's why, Christine, when we had that first conversation, it was so refreshing for you to be willing to talk to us as, outside of your official position. The only way this is going to turn around is if we are going to go through the brutal, scary, deep process of finding our souls together and really making a difference. So policy does make a difference, and Tim has been working tirelessly on our pieces of legislation. You heard Assemblyman Atkins and his commitment to it. And Tim, I'd like to give you an opportunity quickly before we end to talk about how far we've come with the legislation. And Tim is somebody I've known for I can't remember how many years, and is a dear friend who I love and an amazing colleague. And this man, if you ever saw him dance, this man has soul.
I think you heard the most important update on our legislative effort from Assemblyman Atkins. And I have confidence that he will stop at nothing to get this bill through committee and voted on the floor. And our help in assuring Speaker Coughlin will strengthen his efforts, but they are really superlative. And he is supported equally by Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, who chairs the committee into which this bill is being introduced, and moreover is a co-prime sponsor of the Community Recovery and Family Success Act. On the Senate side, we've gone from having two prime sponsors, Senators Gopal and Nia Gill, to now having one already named on the bill, Senator Burgess, Renee Burgess from Newark, but also the support of a number of other senators, including Senator Stack from Hudson County and Senator Cryan from Union County. And as I mentioned in the dialogue with Assemblyman Atkins, he has a very close working relationship with the Senate President from Union County, Senator Scutari, so that we have confidence that these bills will be heard in committee, hopefully this month, that the reduced and sort of modified budget that would fund 2 years of service and build out of community-based family success service networks is within the capacity and reach of the current budget, and that there are a variety of sources, not all tax revenue, some opioid settlement, federal funds that could be applied to this purpose as well. So this is a goal within reach. And I'll close with this. 3 years ago, we started on this venture, recognizing that as the pandemic imposed itself on all of us, there was a willingness and an openness to considering how much damage we have done by ignoring the importance of building the pillars of family success in communities and in families: housing, food, safety, schools, environment, job opportunities, the holistic approach. And the federal government and the state both responded to that emergent situation by adding dollars and value and services. And lo and behold, I said at the time, this is an opportunity, it is a moment in time, but it will pass. And even today, as we begin to see what some would argue is a normalization of those circumstances, you see a distraction, less intention, less dedication to alleviating the conditions that create distress. The most obvious today being the expiration of the additional food SNAP benefit as of March 1st, which contributed immensely to the reduction in family poverty, not just child poverty, family poverty, over a 1-year span. It's as though they said, well, this is an interesting experiment. We'll reduce poverty across the country by 20 or 30%. And a year and a half later say, well, that was an interesting experiment. Let's go back to where we were. That's the battle we're engaged in. And your efforts every year, every day to support and combat, to support families and combat those conditions is noted. But we have to work together to bring the larger body politic and our world into recognizing the importance of holistic, community-based, community-directed, and family-oriented success initiatives. That's where we are in the legislation. And I will circulate Speaker Coughlin's email address. You should let him know, and Assemblyman Atkins, for their efforts, as well as what's happening on the Senate side. Thanks. I'm sorry to take up so much time.
Thanks, Tim. Good. So, Kathy, we're out of time, so you're not going to have a chance to poke fun at me. So I'm sorry. But one thing I would just like to close with an idea, and I'm saying this from the perspective of love, trust, and connection, because they're never going to be like one-step solutions to any of these things. I mean, it's taken us a long time to get to the point where, you know, our kids are killing themselves and killing other people and feeling horrible and all this pain. But in terms of resources, so Christine, you've done an amazing job with your budget. I mean, you really got a really solid, you know, resource there. There are dollars coming into other departments that, you know, are intended for the same purpose. And let's imagine that we were able to get our legislation through, and at the beginning, they would all be fragmented and siloed the way they always are, and why we're in this position. But then imagine if we could have a method that it would have to be built upon love, trust, and connection, to take all these resources that we've all worked so hard to put in place, you know, from you to Bob Garassi to Tim to everybody, you know, and then sit down and pool not only the dollars, but the, you know, the energy and the thinking, and say, can we really try to do something transformational, something that's really different? And that would only happen if we can get ourselves together, but then bring people who are impacted by this to the table to make, you know, the kinds of decisions that we've all talked about. And I think, I can't remember who said it, but it's something about a kid, it's never too late. It is not too late for us to create collective impact. And so Bob Garassi, I'm going to say to you, I never thought I would come to the point where I'd say this to you, but I love you. And I appreciate your work, and you're not stopping, you know, and it's not too late for us to pool not only our resources, but our energy and our commitment and our strength. And that can only happen through love, trust, and connection. And so I thank every single one of you, not only for being here today, but carrying this message forth. And I truly believe that, you know, that what you have represented in your communities and in your work all over the place, it's been unleashed. It's too late to stop. So let's figure out ways to, you know, to connect and keep going. And sorry, we're a little over our time, but it's great to see everybody. Thanks so much.
Tom, wait. I just have two things to say. That everything that was spoken today came full circle. Our little theme song for our parent leadership recognition was "Love is Forever." And we realized that that is something that can create change. And I just want to say that the Assemblyman Atkins said, right people, right place is something that will turn New Jersey upside down. And I want to say that for the first time, 2 fathers won recognition awards for Parents Anonymous, 2 fathers. And that was phenomenal. 2 fathers from South Jersey. One won the Parent Jolly K and Parent Champion for their work in the community in South Jersey. I could not let this go without saying that there is movement in Parents Inc. And I'm grateful that one of the people behind it that's pushing it is our Commissioner Christine Beyer. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. So anybody else have anything they want to offer before I know we're way over time and I don't want to take your time, but anybody else have anything? Kathy Rowe?
Oh, I just want to say that talking about Commissioner Akins, he said that we need to start sending him letters. And we have so many incredible people in the learning community that have incredible expertise in this. Ann Goldman, you know, Bob Garassi. We need to now mobilize our forces to say, let's do things differently, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So come on, let's get together and shower that office with emails and letters.
And I just need to say, I am so excited that the former FISers are here in this meeting, and the Kid Connection, Lori, Desiree, and Katie, so great, and Joe. I'm so excited that FIS legacy lives on.
Terrific, Jean. Bob Garassi, do you have anything you want to offer? I can see your mind whirring.
No, I'm just mesmerized by all the love and the kindness and I think the mandate for collective impact in this area is palpable, and I just can't wait for all of us to unleash our individual and collective power to make this happen and to improve the conditions that we've talked about. So count me in.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else? Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and with love, connection, trust, but I think more than anything else, courage. This is not easy. we got to dig in, and it's painful, but we can do it together. So thank you so much, everybody.
To everyone.
All right, thank
Thank you.
you.